Cheers, everybody. It is the morning after the trip, and I've got my backpack here. I'm gonna pull all of my stuff out and go over what I brought for this trip. Before I do, it's worth mentioning that most of what I have in here isn't necessarily stuff I would pick out if I was gonna go to the store tomorrow and buy new stuff. This is mostly just hand-me-downs and stuff other people have used, not wanted, and given to me. And so it's kind of like a ragtag setup. And I am going to be trying to upgrade this thing throughout the year. This is 2024. By the end of the year, it'll be fun to look back at what I started with and see how things have changed. Anyways, I'm going to start with the pack here, and then I'll pull everything out and start another video. But the pack I'm using right now is an Osprey Atmos 65-liter backpack. It's not one that I picked out. My friend Martina bought this, used it once, didn't like it, and gave it to me for free. So that was awesome. It's lasted me about 1.5 years, and it's been pretty comfortable. It works. It's on the heavier side of packs for what I tend to like. I think it weighs 3 or 4 pounds by itself without anything in it. But the good thing has been that it carries a heavy load well. So it works for like these shoulder season, winter types of trips where I'm not doing big days, carrying a lot more weight, carrying a lot more stuff for the winter and the cold. It's comfortable, a lot more comfortable than the Exos packs I used to have, which I do like, but those just don't hold heavy weight well. But this one has the classic anti-gravity back thing going that Osprey has on a lot of their packs. It's comfortable, and it allows for like airflow in the back so you don't sweat as much. And you see it has like a huge hip belt, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend to anyone to buy this backpack. It's just what I'm using, and it's kind of cool to see that it works. And right now it's just so beat up. A lot of the zippers, it's not the zipper, but the tracks are just destroyed. I've modified it a bunch to make it lighter, unintentionally modified it at times. You see I actually have a huge hole in the side of this thing, and I actually got that almost 1 year ago, back in May. In the Bob Marshall, I had an emergency fire to dry all my stuff out because it was snowing and raining on us, and got it a little too close to the fire, burned a hole, and I've never even bothered patching it because I typically always put stuff in garbage bags inside my pack. Right now, you can see it's not really in the garbage bag, but that's just because it was the last day and I packed everything up real fast. But never had a problem with stuff falling out of it. But it is on its last leg, and I'm hoping to get a new backpack here in the next month or two. So see what I come up with. All right, pull everything out and then go from there. All right, so this is what all my stuff looks like outside of the pack, and I'll go over everything real quick. Start over here at the backpack. I already went over this, but I'll show you what it looks like when it's empty. And again, kind of a big, heavy pack, 3.5, 4 pounds by itself, but definitely durable and sturdy. Impressed with it in that regard. The tent, this tent is definitely something I wouldn't buy again. It's not a tent I picked out, it's just something I had. And right now, all my other tents are kind of leaking, have problems. This guy keeps me dry, and that's why I'm using it. You can see this is the main part of the tent. This was a Eureka Spitfire 1-person tent. Not really sure how much it weighs, but you have the main part of the tent and then the fly. And this is not a freestanding tent. What that means is when I set it up, I have to use stakes. It doesn't just stand up by itself. It's a tube tent, if that makes sense. You set up one stake on one side, pull it tight, and set up the other stake. And it has 2 sets of poles. Get over here real fast. These are what the poles look like, and I used 5 stakes and didn't even use them all. You really only need like 3 or 4 for this model, and that worked even in high winds. Moving on to the sleeping setup. I'll get to my air pads in a second. My quilt. That is a 20-degree UGQ quilt. It's probably the best item I have in my pack. I love this. You see I have it stuffed in a garbage bag. I stuff everything in garbage bags, and that's how I keep everything dry. Pull it out for a second. Spread it out here. And yeah, that's what it looks like. Not very heavy, weighs under 2 pounds, and it's made by UGQ Outdoors. I think it cost me $300 or $400, and I would definitely buy this again. It kept me warm on this trip. I think I already said this, but it's rated to 20 degrees, and I didn't have an issue, even though it was getting below freezing every night on our trip. And I would definitely buy it again. Love it. I've had it for over a year. Definitely the best item in this collection. The air pad I have is also something I like a lot, and have used this model for years. This is the Thermarest Neo Air X-Therm, and it's a 4-season air pad. It weighs about 1 pound. Why I like it is that it has a pretty high R value, which means the R value is the warmth, how much warmth it offers above the ground. This thing, when you blow it up, it sits that high off the ground, and that just helps to keep me warm. However, right now I have a small leak in my valve, so it goes flat on me. I mean, that's kind of normal for all air pads. I used this one for 1.5 years without issue, and so I'm gonna have to probably get another one, possibly the same model. But because mine is leaking a little bit, I also brought this extra pad. This is like one of those Thermarest Z pads, and I basically just put it down on the ground like that in my tent, then put my air pad on top of it, and this little extra layer just adds some warmth to help insulate me, especially obviously because this guy is leaking. So if this wasn't leaking, I wouldn't have that. How about that? All right, let's get this out of the way. Moving on to the clothes, I'll start right here. I have a down jacket. Couldn't tell you who made it, actually, maybe Backcountry. And again, you see the garbage bag. All my dry clothes that I'm not wearing will go into my garbage bag when I'm hiking, just to help keep them dry. I brought one rain jacket, and again, couldn't even tell you what this is. Maybe Columbia. I go through a lot of rain jackets. I seem to get a lot of rain jackets. I think someone gave this to me in my family as a Christmas gift. Yeah, Columbia rain jacket. So it's all I have right now. It's what I'm using. Don't know if I'd buy that model again. I have a wool fleece top. Love this. This is for camp. This is like my warmth layer. I have this guy, and then my jacket for at camp to keep me warm. And then I have these layers to hike in. I have 2 long sleeve shirts that are moisture wicking. They're gonna, you know, kind of move the moisture, not collect it, so I don't get wet and cold. This was my little sleeveless tee that I hiked in most of the time. And then as far as pants go, I had 1 pair of shorts, I had 1 pair of long pants to hike in, and then I have a pair of long johns for camp. And again, had no problems. I only had to put these on like 1 or 2 nights of the trip. I brought 3 pairs of socks, and I already mentioned that I would never bring good socks on a trip like this with a lot of water crossings. Same thing with the shoes. I'll get to those in a second. But I only brought 3 pair, and I actually never even put this pair on. So I only used 2 pairs, and this was my pair for camp, my dry pair. See, these are a little bit more heavy duty, thicker. I guess these are kind of heavy duty too. These are the ones that I hiked in. And what I do here is I take my old socks that I don't use anymore, or I lose a pair, like one of the 2 in the pair, and so I cut the tops off of them, and then I use these as my river crossing socks. And I like doing it on these thicker ones because the top end doesn't get a hole as fast as some of the skinnier socks, and I find that in the river crossings that just helps. And yeah, these were great. Used them the entire trip, had no problem with them drying out. Brought a pair of flip-flops. You don't really need them. I didn't really need them. It's like a luxury item, and mine are kind of ripping anyways, but it is nice to have those for camp. The shoes, it's a pair of Morels. Couldn't tell you anything about them. I bought these in Yellowstone National Park because I left my hiking shoes in someone else's car, and they left, and so I needed something like on the spot, and this was like the cheapest pair they had at the little outdoor shop in Yellowstone. And I've used them for about a year, not quite. Like I said earlier, I would never bring a brand new pair of shoes or a good pair of shoes on a trip that had a lot of river crossings, because the water's going to tear everything up. But they held together fine and did great. I also have this little towel here, and this is awesome. I love bringing these on trips where I'm in the water a lot for obvious reasons, because you can dry things out. But I also spilled coffee inside my tent, not once but twice on this trip. And so having this thing was nice. I was able to clean up the inside of my tent. It does smell like coffee. I brought a beanie, and then I did have a hat. I guess I don't have that out here. And then we'll move on to all the little small stuff. A water bag. This thing can hold 6 liters of water. And this obviously came in handy for when we camped at that high camp. We were able to fill it up, bring water to the edge of the plateau, and have a dry camp. Then I also had a bee-free water filtration system. How this works is you fill the bag up with water and you squeeze it. The water goes through the filter and comes out clean. And of course, mine's kind of clogged. I didn't even use this. I brought it, but Catherine has the same exact thing, and she has a brand new filter on hers and was offering it to me, so I just used that instead of mine because hers is quicker. But that's normally what I have. And then I had one water bottle. I actually had another little bottle somewhere that had alcohol in it, but this kind of varies trip to trip. Right now, this was just the only thing I had, but I actually don't use these very often anymore. I'm starting to go with like the plastic water bottles that when you buy bottled water at the store, just because it's lighter. I guess that's kind of obvious. All right, I had a headlamp. This one's by Black Diamond. Couldn't tell you the model. It's rechargeable, so that's awesome. Toilet paper and the deuce of spades. This little guy weighs a ½ ounce, and so it doesn't really weigh that much, and it's pretty easy to dig up a hole to poop in. A little first aid kit with some pills, band-aids, and so on. Someone else had a bigger first aid kit in our group, so I didn't really go big here. Toothpaste, toothbrush, floss. You can see that this is kind of a pretty small toothbrush. Actually, I'm going to have to buy another one that's a little bit longer because that's maybe too short. This is my camera setup. A lot of people ask me about this. I use 2 different cameras. Sony a6500, which is this guy, and it has that nice lens on it. And then I also use the GoPro Hero 11 Black. See, it's pretty beat up. I have this casing for it, and then I put it in this little selfie stick, put it on the selfie stick, which also works as a tripod. This bottom part here opens up, and I can set it on the ground and shoot walk-bys, and then this extends out a good ways, and I can shoot selfies of myself and talk to the camera. Couple extra batteries, couple extra memory cards, 2 charging cables, and an Anchor battery pack. This is kind of a big one. Couldn't tell you the size. I just know it lasts me the entire week. Still has power on it, so a little heavy, but definitely gets the job done. You see I have this little red protection cloth here. I use that to wrap up this camera when I'm not using it. That is the camera gear, and last but not least, the food, or what's left of it. I already went over my food in the trip, but I'll just touch on it briefly here. You see I have a spork or a spoon. I have a little stove that folds out and screws on to this guy, fuel canister. This little small fuel canister, I bought a brand new one for the trip, and it's empty. Emptied it out in 7 days. I was making a lot of coffees and teas, but didn't last a full week. And then my pot is this little guy. I don't even know anything about it. Actually, Kat gave this to me when she got a new one. So a little pot, little lid. That's all the food I have left for this trip. Not a whole lot. Ate most of everything I brought. And then you see I had a little stuffed sack to put the food in. I just slept with my food. I wasn't too worried about bears or other animals. Later in the year, could be an issue out here just because there are a lot of animals, and you know, that's the main part of keeping your food stored, is you want to keep it away from critters, rats, mice, animals. Didn't have a problem on this trip just because it's still winter and most things are hibernating. And I have taken all of my food out of my food bag. So I'll break down everything that I am going to be eating on this trip. Just to start with, I have a fuel canister and a little stove that screws into the fuel canister. I'm sure everyone's familiar with that. It's like one of the most common and easy setups. I've got a really lightweight pot with the lid, and then this is my spork. And really the main reason I brought this is to heat up water for drinks. I'm not really going to be eating any meals that require cooking. I do have one little ramen soup and a chicken and dumplings meal. But other than that, everything else I'm eating is going to be just quick and easy. I got these tuna pop cans. I'm a big fan of these guys, and they're a little heavy to start. But once you eat them, the empty cans weigh less than an ounce. And the reason I like them so much is they're super high in protein. 28 grams. See if I can find it on here. Pretty sure that's what it says. Blah, 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 blah. Protein, 28 grams. There you go. So that's how I'm getting my proteins, and that's what I'm eating for my dinners. I ate one last night. They actually taste really good. And then, yeah, you can see I have a bunch of drink mixes, ton of coffee packets, a ton of electrolyte packets, whole bunch of teas and all different kinds. Even got some AG1 green mix from Cat. And then I'm going with a bunch of bars, just all kinds of random stuff. I did grab a bunch of these at the general store by our camp right before we started. That's why there's all these little singles. Do have a Snickers. Gonna try to save that for the end of the trip. Huge chunk of extra sharp cheddar cheese. And cheese is gonna do well just because the temperatures are cold enough, not gonna get hot. So this will last. And a few string cheeses. I actually bought an entire bag for I had 12 of these for the trip, and I ate them all before we even started. I have a big thing of almond butter. This is another thing I kind of do for dinners and lunches sometimes. High in calories, high in fats and proteins. Really, really good. And obviously it's heavy, but as you go through it, the weight goes down. And then I mix it with honey. Honey's awesome too. Good source of natural sugars. And then I'll mix both of those guys with these. And these are sprouted whole grains by Ezekiel. I think that's what you call them. Kind of like cereal, kind of like grape nuts, but a little healthier for you. Have one random cookie, and just, yeah, a few other random items. A little bit of alcohol on this trip. This thing of wine, I've pretty much already tapped it, so it's not going to last too much longer. One beer. And then you can see my water setup for this trip. I have this one little water bottle, but I also have this little deflatable water bottle. That's also my water filter, Be-Free system, right? You just put the water in here, squeeze it, comes out, and it's purified. But mine's pretty clogged. Thankfully, Kat has a brand new one, so I'm probably just going to use hers for the trip. And then I also have this big 6-liter water bag. You can see it's full of water right now. And that is so that every time we camp, I can go to the creek, fill it up with water, and bring it back to camp and have water there. So this is what I'm going to be putting through my body for the next 6 days. It's not going to look like this when it comes out.